was like, no, I need to understand how sales works. So I started studying Socrates, started studying negotiation, neurolinguistic programming, influence. One of my favourite sayings is every adversity has the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And I've just started working with the world's leading social psychologist on the topic of influence, a guy called Robert Cialdini.
What's the thing that you just love doing?
Helping people. I get my good feeling from helping people.
You worked with him?
Yeah, I worked with him. I was one of 6 people in the world that could teach persuasion and persuasion.
This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by our digital media partner, DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
Dave Thompson.
Good afternoon, or good morning, rather.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. I'm really looking forward to this because we caught up last week and I hadn't seen you in years, and you said something significant to me about sales. So I'm going to learn today. And that was something like, there's nothing in the world that you don't know about sales. Is that right?
So I'm saying, ask me anything you want to know about sales or training salespeople to be amazing. That's what I'd say. I'll probably know the thing that I know the most of in the world, sales.
Brilliant. Well, that's the hook line to keep people watching, because we're going to come on to that. Because everyone's a salesperson, and I, you know, whether they know it or not is probably a different thing. But I love that. So we first met, I'm going to say 22 years ago. Yeah. I think you just got into business with Martin Hawksby?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Hawksby's in Wellingborough?
Yep.
So before that, tell us about Dave Thompson. What was life for you like? Education is something we've also got a passion for. So
as a kid growing up, we were really poor. I mean, by the time I was 10 years old, I'd lived in 9 different houses. So that's a house like nearly every year. I'd been to 5 different schools. I'm dyslexic, so it wasn't an ideal start, let's just say. And my stepfather was a wife beater and an abuser, so it was a horrible time growing up as a kid. However, everybody gets a tough time at some point in their life. No matter who it is, they get a tough time. By the time I was 16, I'd left school with 0 qualifications, like none. I wouldn't have gotten any at the time because I'm dyslexic. And there's a band that was called Status Quo, and they sung a song called In the Army Now. So 1986, Status Quo was singing In the Army Now. All my mates were going in the army, and so I thought I'd go into the army, and I thought that would be a good blag for me to cover my tracks as to why I'd left school with no qualifications. So,
wow.
So young David Thompson became a soldier in 1986, and that was really the start of my career in terms of really understanding what a system was, really understanding what a process was, really understanding what education was all about. Because when you go into the army, they know how to make boys into men. And so, that was like my start in sales.
Wow, bloody hell, mate! I knew when we've spoken before that you had a really tough start, but that was So, how long were you in the army for?
5 years, well, 4 years and 93 days actually, but 16 to 21.
And so you're 21.
Yeah.
You come out of the army. What do you do?
I worked in Dr. Martin's shoe factory. So the old airwear boots that in the
in Wollaston?
Yeah, no, in Kettering.
In Kettering. Yeah.
So I worked in there, which was another system. It was brilliant because what I learned about was there was a way to do manufacturing that if you had a system for it, then and you followed that system, you'd create something amazing, which obviously they did with Dr. Martin's boots, which was similar to the army. So I learned about the system again.
Yeah.
And so it was good.
And then after that, you became an IFA.
No, well, what happened was while I was in the shoe factory, it was September 1990. I fell in love with a girl from Desborough called Lisa Fenwick, and her brother-in-law, a guy called Paul Iliff, took a shine to me, and he worked for this insurance company called Combined Insurance Company of America. And he said, I think you'd be a really good financial advisor, and he tossed me a book. And it was called The Success System That Never Fails. And I thought, the army was a system and it worked
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me. And so I read that book and I was hooked. Literally, I was sat in the boxes in Griggs' Shoe Factory. It was like September 1990. And I'm reading this book, and being dyslexic, you know, the only books I'd read was a few pages of Peter and Jane as you know, like going through. So I'm reading this book and it was almost speaking to me. And it talked about the need to have a positive mental attitude, that sales was a system. And I thought, this is it, this is me. So I'm reading there. And Andy Mobbs, who I worked with, who was packing all the boxes like next to me, this big guy is about 6'4" with blonde hair, who's putting all the boxes there, and he reminds me to this day. And I read the book, and that was the book that changed my life. And then I went to work in financial services as a financial advisor, and I remember leaving Griggs' Shoe Factory, and the guys were going, "You're never leaving here, mate. You'll be back. You'll be back." And unfortunately, you know, they were right. Within 6 months of working as a financial advisor, I failed because I went into the wrong part of financial services. I went direct, trying to sell insurance direct to the public. But a few months later, I got a job as a mortgage advisor working for Connell's estate agents in Wellingborough, and that was the opportunity that changed my life, because there I had a captive audience, people that were coming to me to buy out or come into Connell's to buy a house, and all I had to do was persuade them to do the mortgage and the insurance with me, which compared to selling insurance direct to the public was like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
So that was the big opportunity. That was my break, if you like.
So in a way, the rest is history, but at the same time, it's probably a great halfway point, because it wasn't very long after that before you actually thought, I can run my own business here.
Well, what happened when I worked at Connell's? I started working, and my first month, I earned myself more in the first week than I earned as a month in the shoe factory. In the shoe factory, so in the shoe factory, if you earn, I earned £130 a week in Griggs's in Kettering. That was what it paid
Back in 1990.
Yeah, back in 1990. But 1991 as it was at the time. But then I earned £800 as a financial advisor, just talking to people, and I thought, oh my God, how do I keep this? You got to understand, a kid from a council house that's been in a children's home, I've just earned £800 in a week. And then I started asking, how do I keep this? How do you get amazing at this? And I was told, copy Sharon. And I was like, no. I need to understand how sales works. So I started studying Socrates, started studying negotiation, neuro-linguistic programming, influence. And that's why I can say to you now, you know, not just off the back of what I've done, but off of the countless hundreds, you know, probably thousands of people that I've helped become first top financial advisors, but also amazing salespeople, because I've studied everything that sat behind it and taught them from a dyslexic's point of view how to be amazing at it.
So when you we'll come on to this, but you've built up multiple sales teams across different businesses. If you actually produce your own sales program for them, and then do you adapt that for their level, or what in terms of what level they've got, or what you think their capability is?
Now, ultimately, most people, if you ask them what sales is nominal. People don't know, but they don't know about having the right mental attitude. So in order, whether you're successful or not, you know tough times, what you've gone through with COVID, but the one thing that got you through was you took action and you had the right mindset.
Yeah.
But how much do people train salespeople about what actions to take and what mindset to have? So I'd always teach a positive mental attitude is the right mental attitude in any given set of circumstances, incorporating the plus traits of life, such words as hope, faith and integrity. So you teach people what the right mental attitude is, how to reframe negative situations and make them positive, how to work together in harmony, and then you start adding the components to what make great salespeople, and that's what we called our sales mastery program. And
that mastery program, how long does it take to complete? Is it a completion or is it participate?
It depends on how long somebody wants to put into it, but probably 6 weeks. So 6 weeks.
Full on for 6 weeks?
Yeah, full on 6 weeks. 6 weeks worth of graft to change your life. But you'll learn neuro-linguistic programming, negotiating, framing, opening, closing. How many times do people walk into a conversation and they don't know how to open a sales conversation? You know, how do you open it? It's like, I don't know, and they don't know how to have the components that make them amazing at sales.
My dad, he's a great wordsmith, but he taught me many years ago. He said, as soon as I got with my wife, now with my wife, Vicky, he said, "You'll soon learn the art of negotiation." And I said, "What do you mean?" He went, "We'll be negotiating about who's going to be changing Taylor's nappy, for example." Yeah. He said, "But you just don't. She won't realise it, but you need to be asking the right questions." And that always sort of stuck with me from the outset, because you are like that right from when you come into the office in the morning. So that sales mastery program, it gets me. How often do you run those now?
We run them we've ran them with big corporations. So we ran them with the British Standards Institution and helped them with 400 of their salespeople increase their sales by 40%. So that was massive. We trained all the financial advisors for a year in Connell's group. So 500 financial advisors. We've trained them, and sometimes we do it with individuals. Depends on what it is, but ultimately, it depends on circumstances. But that's how you. Like, if you think about now, as you are right now, when you onboard a new salesperson and you want them to be successful in the most important quarter of the year, how many times do you bring people on board and you teach them positive mental attitude, negotiation and framing? You put them through their proper pre-season. So when they go on, they're immediately great.
And you said you gave me a gift before we started. Just talk me through that for the audience.
So one of the reasons why, I need to take you back to 2008, and tell you a little story. So we used to run a business whereby we sold insurance over the phone, and we sold life insurance, house insurance, home insurance, mortgages, whatever. We did them over the phone, which is the most difficult way to sell. And we did really well in that we reversed Google's algorithm. So we were number one in the world for life insurance, house insurance, home insurance, mortgages, and we were selling over the phone. And at that time, I thought I made it. I thought I was the best thing ever. Went out and bought a Ferrari, as you do. And I thought, I was the best thing since sliced bread. And we were making £200,000 a month profit. Guess who that profit was for? Me. It was me. It was my company. So I was making it. So I thought I was the next big thing. It was 2008. And then Google did what Google can do. It did a Google dance, and it moved all of our leads around. And then guess what? We went from getting 10,000 leads a month to none.
Wow.
And then the staff were looking at me like, what are you going to do, Dave? What are you going to do? And so I did what most people would do. I cut my staff in half. I thought, right, okay, these are the best salespeople. These are not the good. So I went from 200 down to 100, got rid of half the staff. But the problem is when you do that, you're losing the other half of staff's best mates. So all of a sudden, November 2008, all my people are leaving. I'm getting a note.
But this was the crash. That was the financial crash.
But it wasn't that wasn't the crash for me.
But that had nothing to do with it.
Zero impact.
Okay.
Losing all of our leads had the impact. And then when we got rid of half the staff, the other staff started leaving. So all of a sudden, I've got 2 kids in Wellingborough school. I've got a business that's costing me a fortune to run. I've got a £1.28 million mortgage with Barclays, and I've got financial advisors that are leaving like that. Like the leaves are dropping off the trees. And I'll never forget, I got an email from one of the guys that worked for me. I won't say his name, but we'll call him Mark for the purpose of this. And he dropped me an email saying, Dave, can we have a word? And I thought, oh no, Mark's not leaving. This is a nightmare. And I thought, but then I thought back to my life about what I'd gone through previously. And I thought, well, when you're in the children's home, when you had no money, when you left school with no qualifications, we had £500,000 in the bank. I thought you're going to have to go again. So all of a sudden I started looking at Wellingborough, which is like, it's just like 93 other counties, Northamptonshire. It's not like you've got an Oxford or Cambridge. You've got, very normal people just like you and I. Yeah. And you had to train them to be good financial advisors. And the reason you have to train them to be really, really good financial advisors, great financial advisors, is because we had to buy them leads now. So I don't know if you know about buying a lead for a mortgage or a life insurance. How much do you think one lead will cost you?
10 quid?
No, 30 quid.
30 quid.
Right. So if you're buying leads for your people, how many leads do you think you need to buy them a day?
25?
No, you need 10.
10.
300 quid a day, 1,500 quid a week. £7,500 a month on leads. Then you pay them a bit of salary and a bit of admin support. So one person will cost you 10 grand a month. How long does it take to know if that one person's going to be any good or not?
2 weeks?
No, 3 months. Because you've brought them on board, you've recruited.
Yeah, okay, because the training,
so you could either train them, right, for a couple of weeks and then send them out on the road and they start chewing through all your data and eating your leads and getting the job and whatever, and it's costing you 10 grand a month. Alternatively, you train them for 6 weeks properly. You teach them about pitching, you teach them about framing, you teach them about negotiation, all the stuff that I learned, and you make them teach you it back. And then when you do that, guess what? When they hit the phones, then they can start delivering £20,000 and £30,000 a month worth of revenue, and you start making a profit out of everybody. So either you train them properly and you pay your mortgage and your big bills, or you don't. So that was where training people became the thing in 2008 and making people absolutely amazing.
And was that light bulb moment from that email from Mark where you realised you needed to press the reset and take everybody on this same journey?
It was me going back and thinking, what are you going to do, Dave? I've got a wife looking at me, I've got kids, I've got mortgage, I've got bills, and it's like, what are you going to do, Dave? And then I thought, one of my favourite sayings is, every adversity has the seed of an equal or greater benefit. So you get a seed, right? And if you water that seed and you make it grow, like you know about working through adversities, then you can do that. So I thought, okay, what's great about this? What happens if I made this amazing? And I thought, you're going to get a chance to go again. So, and we have to go again. Otherwise, we just sit and we fester and we're inert. So I thought, let's go again. And then when you start bringing kids in, you know, and they were kids, you know, 20 years old, and you start teaching them how to earn 50, 100,000 pounds a year, and they become some of the most successful financial advisors in the country, like, then you know you're onto something. And so I knew how to create great salespeople.
How long do you think it took for you to know that you turned it around from going from that November period back up to 100 plus staff?
Well, we went too hot. We went for too many staff, but then I made it a nice number. So we were just making 20 grand a week, £1 million a year for me. And then because I'd got it so nice, I sold it and systemised it. I built the business and systemised it. It probably took us at that time 6 months to 6 months, because you got to get the people in, you got to get your team on board, you need to right size, you need to not be needy. So you know, because you think, oh, please don't leave. And guess what? When you think, oh, I pray that Ben doesn't leave, guess what Ben does? He either wants a pay rise or he leaves, because you can smell fear. And so never being needy was important. And then we created that production line as to how we could create new financial advisors from nothing, literally from nothing.
So you sold the business in what year?
2017.
But you still had 7 or 8 years of graft there.
Yeah.
And you had other businesses during that time as well.
Yeah. Well, I've had a law firm, mortgage business, insurance business, training business. You know, load of estate agencies.
How many businesses have you bought and sold over the years?
Sold three. Biggest one was the business called Hannah Corporation, where that was a mortgage business, an insurance business, and a law firm, and we got £5 million for it. But which was nice from a kid from a council house from nowhere, you know, in Wellingborough, Northamptonshire. That was something. You know, it was something.
Yeah, because you was in Rushden for that, weren't you?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. I remember the branding.
Yeah.
So here we are, current day.
Yeah.
And Suada.
Yeah.
Was a business that you formed a few years ago.
Yeah.
And this is probably in a strange way sort of reconnected us both.
Yeah.
Because we've both got a passion for education.
Yeah.
But first of all, what's the story behind Suada? What's the purpose of the name?
So when you sell a business, everyone thinks I've sold my business, I'll just retire. But the minute my wife started saying to me, can you go and get help from school? I thought, I can't do this. I need to do something. And then I sat on a plane next to the COO of the British Standards Institute, a lady called Maureen Sumner-Smith. And I'd just started working with the world's leading social psychologist on the topic of influence, a guy called Robert Cialdini. He wrote the big book Influencer Psychology of Persuasion.
You worked with him?
Yeah, I worked with him. I was one of 6 people in the world that could teach persuasion and persuasion. And so Maureen said to me, what do you do? And I said, well, I've just started working with Robert Cialdini. He helped Obama get elected. He's a 130 grand a day guy. I went to him and he said, what would you like to do? And I said, I'd like to create a university where kids like me that have come from nothing can learn about sales and get a degree in sales. And he said, you should work for me and become one of my certified trainers. So she said to me, why don't you come and work in our business and bring your magic to our business? So I did.
I bet you weren't on EasyJet, were you? Robert Cialdini. Yeah. He's up there, isn't he?
He's God. Oh, yeah. His book sold 5 million copies, you know, and I taught his stuff. But here's the thing. Influence in isolation isn't enough. You can't look at that, because that's about cognitive biases. I mean, ultimately, if you do me a favour, right, you know, and I feel like I owe you a favour. If you invite me to your birthday party, then I feel like I should invite you to mine. You know, so understanding cognitive biases is not enough. You need to understand Socrates, framing, negotiating. So when you bring people into your business, you teach them to be amazing before they hit the road. And so that's what I brought to the BSI, and that was my thing. So I started a business called Suada, and Suada's Suada, Suada.com, to teach people how to be amazing at sales. And that's what we did in the BSI.
Wow. So how often do you speak to Robert Cialdini now?
I don't, because what I recognised was teaching Bob stuff was one thing.
Yeah.
But you still need, if you go back 2,500 years ago, there was this guy called Socrates.
Yeah.
Right, and Socrates said, if I ask a prospect a question or a series of questions to which he'll readily agree, and then ask a concluding question based on those agreements, I'll get a desirable response. That's the principle of consistency and commitment. That's Socrates. So I'm looking at what Bob's doing. I'm going, well, that's Socrates. It was done before you. And then he was saying about contrast. I'm going, well, that's pre-framing from neurolinguistic programming. So I could pull apart Bob's program and go, this is interesting, but it's component parts of other things.
Yeah.
And I always like to go back to the source and go, who's the original person that created it? It's Socrates. It's Bangler and Grindler from neurolinguistic programming. And so when you understand all the components about any program, then you say, well, this is not original. The original or the origin goes back to here and here and here. So I taught that for a while and it was interesting. But what I recognised was, in order for you to get really good at anything, right, then you should be able to do one thing. What is it?
Oh, Dave, you're asking me.
So if you teach me something, how do you know if I'm any good?
Will you show me or you tell me it back?
So if I teach you back then you know you've got it.
Yeah,
so I created some technology to do that, which was Suada's teach back methodology. So I teach you about reciprocity, you teach me it back, and then you share it with everybody else. And so that was the magic. So evolving my training business into a technology and training business was the key. And then everybody can learn in their own device on their own time, and you don't have to take them out on a 6-week training course.
And this is what I've had the pleasure of seeing, which I must admit was very, very impressive. Hit me with some numbers. How many people are using this tech now?
So we've just signed up the YMCA Awards, and we're up for the Innovation of the Year in the award. And with colleges, they've got 300 colleges. I think they'll put on 20,000 people into the technology, and so they're using our tech. And then other people use the training, but that's our biggest client so far.
And it's almost like an online community as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because of that sharing and best practice and knowledge gain, yeah?
Yeah, and we trained the Connells Group's financial advisors, 500 of those last year. So, they were our big client in terms of the sales side of things. And obviously, results speak for themselves. You can't not be better when you implement what it is that we teach.
So anybody listening or watching this, this isn't what I would remember as, I remember a guy, my first ever sales course I went on was a guy from Nottingham called Charles Barnesconi.
Wow, what a name.
Yeah, I know. And it's him and his wife. I think her name was Linda. I can't believe I've just pulled that out of the bag there. But he was so infectious and he took control of the room. But there was 20 or 30 of us on it and we were there for a week. But
How much of that can you remember of it?
Do you know what? Probably not a lot.
Okay, so the key thing is, how do you remember what it is that you learn? And the way you learn, you do that is
by
you teach
showing
it back.
and teaching it back.
You teach it. So it was great 20 years ago. Go on then, what can you do? Well, I forgot it in a week. That's no good.
I get that as well completely. But I've been on loads of other training courses which I couldn't remember
either.
The man or the lady that showed us, yeah? But this is very much around learning in your own environment, with either whether that's on as an individual or with your teammates, so to speak.
Yeah.
Not being at a venue with 100 other people watching somebody present to you all day.
Well, at the end of the day, it's about interaction. How do you make it interactive, fun? So what we do is we do pre-boarding. So when a new sales team comes on, let's say you want to employ somebody new into your business, right? How do you make sure you onboard them in the right way? So we have technology, so they onboard, they teach back, they're learning everything. So when they turn up, they're ready to go. Or how do you reinvigorate an existing sales team? Make sure that they're learning in their own time. So they've got some downtime, learn in their own time, they're teaching back, and everybody's in the community. That's what it is, what we do. And then learning about the key things that are most successful when it comes to sales. So you have, the best last quarter of the year, the best next quarter of next year. How do you make sure you do that? Get everybody learning the same thing. It's powerful.
So, you've had a pretty impressive career life. What's the future now for Suada and for Dave Thompson?
So we're doing some really cool things with technology. I get my good feeling from helping people. Like, how do you explain something in a way that everybody gets it? and then how do you make sure that you make an impact and make a difference? You know, like I told you, I lost my mum last month, and you think we're not going to live forever. And so while you're here, you want to make an impact and make it memorable. So it's not like that Charles, whatever his name was, can't remember the other last part of his name, like from 20 years ago. How do you make sure that everybody can remember it and you change their lives? And so that's the key. And, you know, we all want to live, we want to learn, we want to leave a legacy. And so mine's about making sure that we leave a legacy, and it makes a difference to everybody's lives.
You're one of the few people that I put in that sort of league of being very inspirational, and the way that you just control a room as well. You've got that aura about you. But who I'm always intrigued as to where do you get that inspiration from, or who do you go to when you're having a bad day, or do you have a mentor, or?
I've got loads. I mean, so I look at who's the best in the world at it. So I did a keynote like in 2016 for Coutts Bank, 600 bankers, and I screwed it up royally. It was the first keynote I did rubbish.
Why was it rubbish?
I'd got training from the world's leader in public speaking, a guy called Dhananjaya Itiracha. He's an amazing guy, but it didn't strike the note. It wasn't, I didn't do a bad job on the keynote. So then I went away and I thought, what's the key thing when you do a keynote? What's the one thing that tells you if a keynote's really good or bad?
Round of applause at the end.
Okay. Audience participation.
Okay, yeah, right,
If you get the people interacting with you, if I say, Ben, what do you think? And people feel like they're engaged. So then I went away and I thought, who's the best at audience participation? And it's a guy called Ed Tate. So I'll go and find the best in the world, see what they do, get them to train me, and then when they teach you and
take
like,
the best
you get
of
it.
both.
And so I'll always look, who's the best in the world at this? Bob's the best at influence. Cialdini, whatever, you know, he's really good at what he does. So who's the best? And you just model those people. And then you learn. And then I like to meditate as well. So yes, I like to meditate. So just go quiet and connect with the universe, because that's where you get your sanity.
And how often do you meditate?
Every morning.
Do you?
Yeah. Go to the gym, come back, 20 minutes just in a room with a little guided meditation. Typically, I'll listen to Deepak Chopra or Oprah Winfrey do one of their 21-day guided meditations. Amazing. And it just makes you quiet. And like when you're hearing somebody else talking you through a meditation, you can't not do it. And I like the idea of how do you make it so you can't screw it up.
Yeah. And do you still do keynote now?
Yeah, of course. I did a keynote for the Chartered Institute of Sports, IMSPA, 400, 500 of their people, totally engaging. So I've done loads of keynotes.
What's the thing that you just love doing?
Helping people. I get my good feeling from helping people. So when you see somebody learn and grow, so one of my friends at the minute, he's working with the Bank of England, and he is just an amazing guy, but I guess he fits into a category whereby maybe not so popular. So they say like white guy in his 50s, whatever, and that doesn't fit the thing right now. And he's like, I can't believe I'm not getting.
Yeah.
And I said, and I said to him, to this friend of mine, I said, you need to learn some of these skills, like how to frame, how to open, how to pre-frame something. So if I say to you, I'm just going to introduce you to Ben Thomas, he's one of the biggest, nicest, amazing people you'll ever let. You'll meet him. As I say to you, you're going to meet Ben, he's a nightmare. Depends what he's like on the day. Depending what the frame is that you get that message, depends on how you see it. But often we don't tell people, or we don't teach people in the right way. And so, sharing those skills with people that, have got power but don't know how to spend it or don't know how to use that as a currency is massive.
And overcoming objections, does that form part of the framing and part of the persuasion, or is that separate?
Ultimately, if you think about what your ideal client journey is, you can do it so you don't get objections because you box them off at the path, or you reframe them so you box them off at the path. Sales is about one thing in real terms. It's about asking the right questions. Socrates said it. And so how would you ask the right questions so you take somebody on a journey so at the end of it they think, I have to buy with you. It's you. Yeah. I just want to work with you. Yeah. You're amazing. And then the biggest thing is not narrowing it down to one issue. Too many times we say, here's our proposal and here's the other proposal. And they're looking at it, they're going, which one's cheaper? Or which one can I get locally? Or, where can I price check you on Google? Whereas if you make yours so different, so unique, they're going, well, this does this, and it does that, and it does that, and it does that. And I like the people. And you touch all the cognitive biases, and the framing of it is so different. People going, nobody else can quote like that, so they can't compare it to anything. Then you can charge whatever you want.
What's the biggest challenge over the next couple of years, do you see, in your... business life, everything that's going on within the world right now, what's the biggest challenge for you?
Making sure that people have got the communication skills, the essential skills that are really important for success. So too many times we think we can do it with an app, or we think we can just do it on Google, but ultimately at some point you're going to talk to somebody. People do talk. And it's, do you understand what a cognitive bias is? Do you understand that, people, when you speak to them as a salesperson, there's 3 things they think immediately. Are you an expert? So, authority. Have you helped other people like me? Social proof. Do I lose anything if I don't talk to you? So when you talk about, like, you're going to talk to a client, and let's say you're going to go and you're going to pitch Giant, and you're going to say massive changes in the market industry. I don't know if you've seen it on the press or read about it in the, or read it about it in the press or seen it on TV. What I mean is the introduction of AI, and you tell them something new that's cool, social,
Education.
relevant, and they think that's cool. And you say, we're helping loads of people like you. Here's some of the clients we're helping, and here's what happens if you don't do it. Here's a business that's going down the pan that's not doing it. They think, love you. You know what you're talking about. I can listen to you, and that ticks that cognitive bias box straight away.
You've given them something that they didn't know at the start.
Yeah, totally. Something that's scarce, that you're an expert, you've helped other people like them. That's amazing. But too many times we ring up and try and be a friend. Hi, it's me. How are you? How's your day? Forget it. Are you an expert? Have you helped other people like me? Do I lose anything if I don't talk to you? They're the big questions. Scarcity, authority, and social proof. They stand out massively when you're interacting with another client.
Is there one individual that you would have employed hundreds, if not maybe a couple of thousand people over the years? Is there one person that you're incredibly proud of because of? You don't have to go into like name them or anything like that, but maybe somebody that you've seen come through on the journey where you go, do you know what, that they're one of my biggest achievements. The other, I mean, you can check this out on Trustpilot. So the other week, so I work with Portsmouth University. I'm an entrepreneur in residence, and I teach influence to the students there. Also, to some of the people that are in there. There's a guy in the faculty who's a really, really good guy. He helps the entrepreneurs come through. And he said, David, I'd really like to be great at sales. And I said, okay, let's put you onto the sales mastery program. And the first module is positive mental attitude. And then he's required to do a teach back video and teach me back. And so he does this. His name's Thierry, and you can see it because it's on Trustpilot. It's the latest review for Suada on Trustpilot. And so Thierry comes on and he does his teach back video. And I said, nah, it's rubbish. That's garbage, mate. I said, you haven't nailed it. You don't understand exactly what it is. Go again. Right. So I sent him back with his tail between his legs. And at the time he thought, I know this. And then he went away and he did it again and he taught it back properly. And then 2 weeks ago, he rang me up and he said, David, can I talk to you? Text me. And he said, can I talk to you? Saturday afternoon. I said, certainly. And he said, I want to tell you, he said, what a difference you've made to my life. He said, when I did that teach back video for positive mental attitude, he said, I was having a tough time. He said, but I understood it. Over the last 15 months, I've implemented that into my life. I've reframed negative situations and it's been amazing for me. And it'd been terrible if I hadn't got that. So that tool you taught me, that skill, and that was one thing he learned. He said, that made a massive difference. And I've done that with kids like Thierry. I've done it with people that have worked for NASA, that have run big film companies. I've done it for tons of individuals. Providing somebody teaches back something and you know they've got it, so it's not 20 years ago with Charles that taught me whatever, then you know that stays with them for life. And it makes a massive difference. Yesterday I was talking to a girl called Amy who I'd worked with 3 years ago, who I brought 2 years ago, I brought into the YMCA, who was a client. And she applied for this job. She was going through all of her training, and then while she was going through the training, she went. She'd applied for other jobs, and she was repeating some of the stuff that she knew. She said, "I know about framing, Socrates, cognitive biases," and she got a bigger job at another place on twice the salary, and they offered her double, and they gave her double. And she said, "I've been there, David, but I want to come back and I want to talk to you. You know, can you help me again?" And so I get them all the time, but it's because you make people teach you back. Their neural pathways get wired. You teach them only the stuff that works, only the stuff that's undeniably truthful and so. And then every time when you speak to these people, they go, "Hello, mate, how are you?" And I go, "Yeah, amazing. How are you?" And they go, "I've done this, I've done that, I've done that." And that's just incredible. We're coming to the end of this episode, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. What does Dave Thompson like to do in his downtime?
So I've got loads of kids. So I've got 4 kids and a stepdaughter.
You want a TV then?
I like like kids, I play a bit of golf. I love to snowboard, but ultimately,
Because you love to travel as well.
Yeah,
Because
I love
obviously we've been friends on Facebook for years, and you love to travel.
I love to travel. I mean, this year I've spent some time over in Saudi Arabia. So because you think you know something, but then you go and experience it, and then you realise it's something else. And, like what they're doing in Saudi Arabia is amazing. It's like world beating. So my thing is I'm a winner. I like to win, and I like to see other people winning.
So if we take that as an example, is that have you gone out there for anything specific other than you just want to go out there just to experience it and see what you learn?
Well, I want to understand the culture, understand the people, and then make a difference out there. I mean, ultimately, they own the world's energy. All your gas and all your electric and whatever, it's coming from Saudi Arabia. So the world's wealth there. It's something I don't know anything about that I find interesting. And so we're just putting together some stuff for a project out there that hopefully we win. But if we don't, we don't. But I love to learn new things, love to grow, and then understand different people's cultures. And because when you understand those things, like here's my take on like this life that we live. Imagine, I like to meditate, and so when you meditate, you disappear into the universe. Imagine you're out, right, and you're out in the universe, and it's just you, Big Ben, out in the universe, right, and somebody says to you, I can get you anything, what do you want? The one thing you'd want is, I'd love to see another human. Now, if they brought you another human, it wouldn't matter if that human was old, fat, thin, tall, short, like whatever. You just want to see another human being, just another individual. It wouldn't matter if they were, English, Japanese, Chinese, black, white, blue, grey, pink. You wouldn't care. You just want to meet another individual. And like, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. This is our life. So if I've got you in my life and you're in my life and we get on, right, then your life's better. There's nobody out there that, unless they've done really bad things, but nobody out there generally that, doesn't enhance your life. So the more we connect with each other and the more that we can help each other, the better our lives are. Because if you do something and you're successful, I feel good because I feel like I'm part of that. Yeah. So we just got to come together. And so, learning about other people and helping them and them, and them helping you, that's what it's all about.
So Northamptonshire's home.
Yeah, it's home
for you.
Lived here all my life.
Yeah. Favourite restaurant in Northamptonshire? Where'd you take the kids and the missus out to?
So Sophia's. I love Sophia's in Northampton. It's just a fantastic little Italian restaurant. That's wonderful. I think that's as good as anything. Food's great. It's an old restaurant. They've been there forever. The service is amazing. That's probably my favourite, of them all.
Brilliant. Dave, I've really enjoyed this. It's been fantastic. We're going to keep in touch. Absolutely. I think there's going to be some bits that we're going to do together with the EdTech piece, because one thing that you've said throughout this is about making a difference. Yep. And that's one of our key values. How can we make a difference within the communities that we work within? You do it on a much greater scale. But yeah, I'm glad you're back in my life, mate, because it's been 20 odd years. And I sometimes think actually, if I'd said yes to that job offer 20 years ago, where I would be now, because it's like a sliding doors moment, but I'm glad that we're sort of like come full circle, and I look forward to spending some more time with you. I
love your energy, and like 20 years ago you're amazing, you're even more amazing now. What you're doing here is incredible, and like spending time together, that's the thing. Like, how do you spend time together? So how do you work out how to work out? And so for me, thank you for today. It's been amazing, and I've really enjoyed like talking to you. And you lift me up, you make me feel good, which is happy days.
Oh, you do that for me as well, mate. Top man.
Cheers, bud.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.